ContraCast.
Welcome to the Cosmic Love Antenna Podcast. This podcast is meant to encourage you to connect within so you can share your light with the world. And now, here's your host, Harrison Meagher.
Welcome, beautiful souls, to the Cosmic Love Antenna, my podcast. It feels super exciting to say that, to birth that, to release that into the world. And today you're listening to episode 1 of this podcast, of the Cosmic Love Antenna, brought to you by myself, Harrison. And it's going to be an interesting recording today. I'm going to share some thoughts, share some structure, share some looking into the future of what this podcast, what this platform, what this new exploration, not only into all of the people and the education and the wisdom and the love that I'm going to be bringing onto this new endeavor, but also sharing who I am, what I am, why I'm doing this, what is going on, what is, all of the questions around what this is and what it's going to look like. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning into this inauguration, this beginning, this first step. And I'm excited. I'm excited for this journey that we're going to take. So how I want to begin this conversation today is first starting with my feelings. And then I want to get into what you're listening to, what the Cosmic Love Antenna is, who I am, and then also, again, a prediction, a sharing of what is to come with this platform, with my voice, and with this podcast. So my feelings right now are interesting because this has been a long time in the works, a long time in the making, but it's taken some time. And what I mean here is the podcast itself, right? The podcast and sharing my voice in this format. And my feelings right now, it's funny when I pressed the record button and started this, got set up, made my little nest here, got the recording system down, got the voice down. I felt a surge of energy in my heart space. And we're probably going to get into that today as I explain a few things here today. But that surge, that heart sensation is really the base of what this podcast is going to be about. What is that sensation? What is that? What does that mean? What does that feeling in the rest of the body, right? I'm going to talk about a lot of that, but specifically, what is the heart? What is love? What is that inner consciousness that speaks through that chest center, that heart center? So they're my initial feelings. And I think you can probably pick up where I'm going to go with this and with this journey today. So I want to shift now into explaining to you what is the Cosmic Love Antenna? What is that? What is this title, this framework, this transformation? And I think that's a really good place to begin. The Cosmic Love Antenna is something I do with clients in my business, in my coaching. That is the transformation that I promise. And what it is in many ways is a reconnection back to self. It is a reconnection back to what has been there the whole time. The Cosmic Love Antenna symbol and imagery is connecting within so you can connect without. When you think of what an antenna is, right? And let's think of a satellite antenna or a mobile phone antenna, or maybe, you have an antenna on your mountain side where it emits the frequency for the valley. There are 2 main sections of that antenna, right? There is the inner working, right? The frequency that is flowing through it. And then there is the exterior of the antenna, that is the structure that allows for the frequency to flow. And in many ways, that is what we are, right? Put very simply, we have an external structure and support, foundation, safety network, and we have an internal frequency and flow of energy and information. And ideally, in a perfect world, we want both parts of that equation to be working well, right? We want the internal to be flowing and connected, and we want the external to be strong, to be supportive, to be vibrant, to be powerful, so that frequency can connect, not only, again, connect inwards, but connect outwards. So that is an overview, a description of the imagery that is the antenna, the Cosmic Love Antenna. When I say cosmic, the cosmic is the frequency that emits outwards, right? Because the frequency I emit as an individual impacts everyone. It impacts everyone, everything, from a very local to a, city, country, global, and even cosmic perspective. So when I truly lean into being the change I want to see in the world, when I make my frequency strong, it impacts everything outside. So from there, the next question is, what is that frequency? What is that frequency that is emitted? Right. So if I have the antenna outside and inside, what is the frequency that is flowing, that is connecting, that is emitting? Well, I think you've probably got the answer already, but that frequency is love. And not just love in that emotional feeling state. I'm talking about love as the embodiment of love. When I say love as I see love and I feel love as the source that connects us to everything and all that is, was, and ever will be. I equate love as God consciousness, as the divine, as source, as the field that lets us know that we all are from and originate from the one source. So that is the frequency that we want to connect into. That is what we want to help flow, right? That is what is the power that connects us all and helps us heal and helps us transform, helps us attract, helps us lean into abundance, all of the things. And you, my friend listening, you beautiful soul, are this cosmic love antenna. We all are. So that is a very sort of brief overview of what it means to be into that state. And this is where now I lean into, okay, so I understand Harrison. I understand the metaphor. I understand the symbology. I understand the image. But how do I shift into that? I'm chronically ill. I have had childhood trauma. I am moving through an autoimmune condition. I am overweight. I do not know how to reconnect to my emotions. I have had trouble receiving love and giving love. All of these challenges, right? How does this equate to the cosmic love antenna? How can I have those challenges and simultaneously lean into the cosmic love antenna that I am? Well, that is the question. And that is why I'm doing this podcast. That is why I do the things that I do as a coach. That is why I speak so much about much of this from a spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical perspective on Clubhouse, on Instagram, on the social platforms that maybe you've heard me speak to before. But it's also why, and this is what I want to talk about next here, why I'm so passionate about holistic healing. I bring in holistic healing to support this cosmic love antenna transformation, right? Because the way that we do one thing is the way that we do all things, right? So if I want to connect to the frequency within so I can connect to the frequency without, I need to be able to overcome a challenge and look at a challenge from the holistic perspective. For I am a beautiful system of systems that works synergistically together in an integrative way. So if I'm moving through a inner child trauma, right, it would behoove me to look at that trauma from an emotional stressor perspective. It would behoove me to look at that emotional trauma through a physical perspective. How can I support that emotional reconnection and healing by giving myself healthier foods? How can I support that inner child trauma healing from emotionally regulating? How can I support that inner child trauma healing through reconnecting back to my physical health, my intuitive senses, and my clairvoyance? Right? These are just examples. But this is where I bring in holistic healing into the cosmic love antenna conversation. It is also at this point where we can have a conversation around the chakra system. If you have heard me talk before, if you've heard me speak about this cosmic love antenna, you've heard me talk about the inner child, you've heard me talk about holistic healing in general, you've probably heard me also talk about the chakra system. Why is that? Just a small little anecdote here. When I was designing the symbol of the podcast today, the chakra system came up to make sure that it was in the symbol, in the image. And it's because it is a foundation within this as well. Within the cosmic love antenna, within the view of holistic healing, the chakra system is another little thread in the web of connecting these themes that we'll be hitting on in the podcast, that I'll be speaking to, the experts I'll be bringing on, that we'll be bringing up. It's because the chakra system, if you are new to it, it is the inner framework that links so many of these themes together, right? The chakra system, right, these energy centers are a reservoir of emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical resolutions, right? They hold the answers and they bridge the gap between the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual being that I am, right? For example, let us look at the solar plexus chakra. The solar plexus chakra not only governs my relationship with the emotion of anger, not only governs the leaky gut, the microbiome, the my ability to digest, assimilate, eliminate, and take on food, not only connects me into my ego, right? My sense of confidence, my self-esteem, not only connects me to what my power is, what my truth and purpose and spiritual reason for being here, right? That's just one little example of how the chakra system brings in all these different lenses that now we suddenly have a framework, a ladder, a schematic to lean into the cosmic love antenna and give you practical tips, right? Practical takeaways across the spectrums of holistic health so you can channel into that cosmic love antenna that you've always been. So I hope that resonates, and I hope that really makes sense, right? With the chakra system, how it connects to holistic healing, how it connects to the cosmic love antenna, and why I personally am so passionate about it, right? I use it with clients, on the regular. I speak about it all the time. It's because it was a mind-blowing realization for me, and a tool that we can all use to really open up areas of exploration and growth and healing. I want to keep flowing now with more about what you are listening to, right? So I've talked about the cosmic love antenna, right? I've talked about what it is and how it connects to holistic healing, how it connects to the chakra system. Before I shift gears and talk about a bit about me, right? Who is the beautiful voice and the heart behind all of this? I want to just quickly hit on what I want to see the goal of this show is, right? What the goal of this podcast, and as you are listening as audience members, what is the goal of this, right? So I've talked about the cosmic love antenna and the holistic healing. But what I want to mention now is this podcast and this regular platform now that I'll be speaking through. I wanted to hit a couple of boxes. I wanted to hit a couple of objectives. The first of which is for me to share with you my insights, my intuitive downloads, my tools, right, across the spectrum of holistic and natural healing, right? These tools, intuitive downloads, these insights come through the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical realms, right? I just talked about the chakra system, right? Talked about the inner child, talking about physical modalities that we can support this healing journey, talking about mental health modalities, talking about emotional regulation and spiritual awakening, right? These are just examples, but channeling myself through them and sharing these things with you. The next goal of this podcast is to bring on experts, but more importantly, to bring on deep souls that may have some experience with this cosmic love antenna, even if they don't realize they're a part of it, right? They have some experience with it, and that can give you another piece of the puzzle to insert into your life, right? And when I say experts, I also, I'm going to bring on, I already have a list, and I'm really excited about just, this list of powerful individuals that many of them are, doctors and practitioners and healers in their fields. But I also have the objective of bringing on people that are wise and deep and connected beyond the titles, right? I'm trying to explain that. I hope that is really coming across, right? Because while I think that our human experience is really valuable, and I'm bringing on those kinds of people, I also think that we don't need those labels to be valuable, right? We don't need those labels to have a voice that deserves and should be heard, right? So that is really the objective of when I will bring on people and guests. They will be experts and professionals, but they also will be deep souls that deserve to be heard and have value to give, regardless of their labels or their experience in many regards. The last two goals of this podcast here, before I shift into more about who I am, is a journey, right? I want to share my journey with you. And I am always learning, always expanding, always growing in many different ways. And I want this podcast to be a reflection of that. I want this podcast to be a reflection of what I learn, what I pick up, how I shift, right? The lessons that I will cement or the lessons that I will go back on and share with you, right? I really want this to be another outlet of me where you can come along, right? You can be here for the ride, right? You can join and see and feel what I'm shifting into and what I'm expanding from, picking up and integrating, which brings me to the last goal is community and tribe. I would love with all of that, right? With me learning, with bringing on experts, with sharing my tools, I want to build a tribe and a community around this, right? You are just as equal as me here, right? The cosmic love antenna is not something that I've constructed that is new to me, that I'm sharing with the world. It is something that we all have inside of us waiting to be ignited and transformed. And through a tribe, through a community, through connecting together, through this platform, through this podcast, that's what I really want to highlight. So it's building that tribe, building that family around my voice, around other people's voices that come on, and taking a step forward collectively together from there. So I hope you're enjoying this solo-sode so far, this solo cast, this first episode of my podcast. I want to shift now and speak a little bit about me. I want to share a little bit about currently who I am now, where I've come from, right? So when we do take this step forward together from this point, right, you have a bit of context. And I don't intend to make this a full biographic breakdown of who I am. I just want to give you some key points in my development thus far to really help you understand a bit more about me. Who is Harrison, right? Who is this voice that you're listening to now that is promoting this idea and this transformation in this podcast? So I grew up in Australia. I grew up on the east coast of Australia. And when I think back to my childhood and my early adolescence, I really break it down into two stages, two periods of my life. First stage, I grew up in the bush on a farm in Australia. My parents hopped around a lot in different areas and had many of these sort of large areas, large homes, large farm, bush type environments for us to grow up in. And I spent half of my childhood in that setting. I remember vividly growing up with animals, growing up with the earth, growing up with nature, while also simultaneously growing up in the 90s with a very heavy pop culture influence on my being. But I think that's also why in my early 20s, I studied computer science, believe it or not, and I had a pull towards technology and the sort of technological development and expansion that we are so evidently seeing in the world at the moment. But my early childhood, that first half was, big memories of being on the farm, connecting to the earth, connecting to animals. And also a big part of that for me was leaning into pop culture, right? Really being into technology and media and all of those things. The second half of my childhood and my early upbringing, we moved to the beach, moved to where I now live, currently Coffs Harbour, Sawtell. It's a region in Australia on the east coast near Byron Bay. And I grew up from there in my early adolescence in the beach, on the sand, connecting to the water, connecting to the sun, really being outside, being active, right? And this really, both of these sections of my early life really created the person I am today in many ways, right? And some of the themes that I know still live within me is that connection to the land, connection to nature, connection to the earth, the sun, right? The beach, the connecting to the elements, while also media, right? Social media and technology, and really having a space in my heart where, while I definitely have opinions now on the role that technology plays in our sort of natural holistic healing journey, it's a tool at the end of the day. And I am very grateful for having to really had a relationship with it growing up so I could see it as that and not see it as something that is me, controls me, right? Can take me away, but is something that I can decide, have the choice to use for good rather than, the opposites of that. The other part I want to share about my sort of upbringing in my life here is, after that early childhood stage, early adolescence, when I was around 17, 18, there was a shift in my sort of expansion and growth and learning and developing. I from the age of 17, 18, I had an urge inside of me that I needed to find more of my purpose and my passion. And it was here that I went on an adventure, right? I went out into the world. I spent probably a good part of 5 to 6 years traveling around the world, both working, exploring. I did a big part of that computer science degree that I did. I studied around in different locations around the world, in Asia, Southeast Asia, in Europe, in North America, Central America. I spent a big chunk of my late teens, early 20s doing this. And I summarize it as my stage of the externalization of my love, right? Going back to the cosmic love antenna, it's very easy for us to instead of going inwards and doing the work that is needed, to feel like that love is all external, right? So while I am very grateful for the experiences that I had, the connections that I built, the lessons I learned, the places I got to experience and feel, the people I got to go deep with and meet on a very, spiritual and loving level, I also am able to see that this time in my life was a stage of externalization. I spent a lot of time drinking. I spent a lot of time really looking for love outside of me, looking for love in things, places, and people, because I couldn't find it internally. And long story made short here, what happened is that I had my own dark night of the soul, my own hero's journey where I met the dragon. And I'd spent years traveling around the world, and very abruptly what occurred was I was in an airport lining up, waiting to get into a country. And I was detained. I was detained for multiple days and then eventually deported back to Australia. And it was during this experience where suddenly I was being called a criminal. I was being called a lot of things that I knew intrinsically were not true. But due to the state of me externalizing my love, everything I knew externally was now telling me something the opposite of what had been experiencing thus far. Right, the love that I had attached myself to on the outside was now telling me that I was a criminal, that I was a horrible person, that I'd made mistakes, that I'd hurt people, and this was difficult. I went, like I said, was deported back to Australia, and for a good year, I was very lost. I did not know how to handle and process and regulate and do all the things. And it was here that I started building myself up, right? The only direction at this point now I had to go was inwards. I was forced by the powers at play to go inwards for my self-love, right? Go inwards for my relationship with love to develop, because it was not going to develop any further external. And it was from here that I started my sort of holistic coaching practitioner, being a trainer journey, right? I started off as a personal trainer. I started with the physical, but very soon realized that this was not enough for me. This was not enough for the work that I wanted to do in the world, not only with other people. I eventually got to that point, but most importantly with myself, right? Because I know now, and this is something that I teach, right? I before we and we before all. The self-love is never selfish. And when we move into an act of self-love, we then are able to go back out into the world as the bright and shining light that we deserve to be. And so I started off as a personal trainer, realized that I was the kind of personal trainer that would break down in between sets with clients, what is happening in their emotional life, what is happening in their relationships, what is happening in their childhood. I felt like there was more to be said and done here. So I started off as a personal trainer. Then I was pulled into more emotional and mental healing, right? Followed my Reiki practitioner, got into, I'm a Czech trained practitioner as well. I went down to the Czech Institute, got a couple of licenses there, and started healing holistically across the physical, mental, and emotional realms. Got some other modalities. And then I also was eventually pulled to more of a spiritual guidance piece, right? And that's where I sort of am at now, is with all those layers integrated into me from the physical, the mental, and the emotional. I also reached a point where I now was being pulled more and more into what it meant to be a spiritual being, hence the cosmic love antenna. So that's a little bit about me and a bit about my story and who I am, where I've come from, and what I'm doing right now here with you, sharing my voice. And I want to just share with all of you beautiful souls listening that you'll hear more of my story as the episodes go on, right? I've noticed that I spend a lot of time on the Clubhouse social media platform. And on that platform, I've noticed that even in my sharing and educating, bits and more pieces of my story have been coming out. So please know that if you do want to know more about me and you want to learn more about my story and my journey, and also, like I said at the start of the podcast, what will come, stay tuned. Stay tuned to future episodes, and you'll get to know me at a very intimate level, I promise. So now, with the sort of answered the what is the cosmic love antenna, who am I now want to finish this episode and wrap up this episode with sort of looking into the future. Okay, so what is my looking forward now, with all the goals, with the framework of the cosmic love antenna, with me as the individual speaking the love to you? What do I see going forward? What am I manifesting? What am I manifesting and bringing into this podcast, into this experience and this journey moving forward? Well, the first thing is I cannot wait, and I'm so excited for the deep dives. I'm so excited for the deep dives with other beautiful souls that will be joining me, with the practitioners, with the individuals, with the people that I will bring on to share themselves with you, with me and with you. And I'm really looking forward to it, because I think it is in these deep dives with deep souls that we really learn, right? I know through the podcast that I listen to that, and maybe you can relate to this, that the things that I expand from is when I can listen to two people talking from a deep and powerful space, right? That doesn't mean we can't talk about superficial layers. That doesn't mean we can't talk about the different, parameters of what makes us human. But it is the deepness in which we expand together. It is the deepness in which we get to feel what really makes us human, and helps us feel what makes us the powerful spiritual being that we are. So that's what I see going forward. I also see this as a platform for defining what love is, right? This is the cosmic love antenna. And I know that love word is much deeper than what we think it is, what we feel it is. Remember, love is not just a fleeting experience or an emotion. It is an embodiment of what we are. It is consciousness. It is God. It is divine. It is source, right? So what I project, what I see moving forward is a deep dive into love in all of its manifestations through the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual worlds. So that is what I see, right? And I'm excited to share it with you, right? A deeper definition of what that love is, so that our cosmic love antenna can shine bright, can expand its frequency into all the places it deserves to be heard and felt. Which leads me on to the next point here of what I see moving forward. And it's really bringing a holistic and natural view to what consciousness is. Right. Again, my main themes here that I want to just really reiterate for you is this cosmic love antenna, is this holistic and natural perspective, right? And it's combining them together, right? Through my words, through my experience, through the people that I bring on, that love and consciousness through holistic lenses, through a natural lens, can be made practical, right? Can be made easy and simple for you as the person listening who might feel like you're in pain. You might be feeling like you're a bit lost. You might be feeling like, I look back at everything that's happened in the last 2 years with all the events happening in the world. There is a lot of pain and suffering, disconnection, isolation, loneliness occurring, right? And if you can listen to a podcast that highlights, right, how we can move through this, how we can connect deeper into ourselves, how we can define love, how we can holistically and naturally get back to this deeper space of self-love, right? And this frequency of consciousness, that's only ever going to help with these pains, with these challenges that I know many of you listening are moving through. And finally here, as I wrap this episode up and bring it to a close, and I'm looking forward to what I predict, what I'm manifesting with this podcast and with this sort of looking into the future, I'm manifesting a deeper connection with you, right? I'm manifesting a deeper connection with a tribe and a community, right, through this platform, right? And I know that the voice is a powerful channel of love. I know that the voice and the words that we speak creates our reality, right? And by me sharing my words with you, and by you listening to them, and maybe you speaking about them and sharing this with other people, it is creating the reality which we are closer together, right? Which we are connected, right? I look to the future and I visualize like Q&As, right? Where I can share some of your thoughts and share some of your questions and expand and give you deeper help. I imagine, right? These lessons, these connections, this cosmic love antenna, I imagine all of you igniting this inside of you, right? All of you igniting this within you. I imagine that if this is something you need help with, right, some of you reaching out to me, right, because this is what I do for a living, right? This is what my purpose and passion really is here. Right? I do this with one-on-one clients, right? So I imagine as part of this community expansion, not just on this podcast, but into the other worlds and places and spaces I spend time, one of them being my coaching, that you feel connected enough to reach out to me and feel like you can really use me as your support system to come back home to your truth. So that is my vision and what I project forward into the future with this podcast, with the Cosmic Love Antenna, and with my voice here. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode. I hope you've enjoyed listening to my voice, and I hope you enjoy and you are excited, much like I am right now, of where this is going to go. And I love you very much for listening. I want to end this chat with, I would love feedback, right? This is the first episode and I already have some things planned, but if you want to reach out to me, I'm quite active on Instagram, on Clubhouse, on Facebook. They're the main social media platforms I spend a lot of time. Reach out to me, right? My handle is at Harrison Meagher, Meagher spelled Meagher. And you can find me on all those social media platforms. Send me a message, right? If you want to go deeper into these concepts, if you have guests, ideas that I can interview, anything that is on your heart, I would love to hear it. But with that, I'm wishing you a wonderful evening, morning, and afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Please know that you are loved unconditionally. This has been the Cosmic Love Antenna, brought to you by your powerful, loving host, Harrison. And I'll see you very soon.
Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Love Antenna podcast. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to follow Harrison on Instagram, Twitter, and Clubhouse at Harrison Meagher. That's Harrison, Meagher.
Electric